With a single snip, Olive had started brown from a lack of usual tender care. It is cut from the ancient fern, occupying large chunks of the office's wall. For better or worse, he should still be on sick leave, but someone has to do the jobs that need to get done and can't be delegated. In his absence, no one took the right care of a lot of things. Most of it beyond his, nor within the ladder of control of a non-interference policy that his organization had. But akin to this leave, someone had to come in and do the necessary intervention for the rest of it to prosper. Exhausted from his little work, he puts down the watering can and the scissors. Causality has been kind to him, especially since Strife had to put out another fire mid-recovery. Having been this long out of commission, turned his usually cluttered desk into an utter paper-stacked mess. While the floor was already full, now he had another difficult meeting ahead that became unavoidable due to the amount of alarms that had rung through his office. There were two. One, the fact that the serpent and darkspawns have become active again but were believed dead and contained. Not just that, the current prison has been to put it bluntly, only failing too long. And with him out of commission and Bettina dead, there had been a good solution he wanted to entertain. He wanted to spur this equivalent of him that fate. 2. The aftermath of one and the subsequent conversation with that very individual that has resulted from it. All signs point towards hurtling down something worse than an XC. It had no classification. It was simply a single bell that told, if you do not intervene now, there will be nothing ever left again. You can pick up the pieces from an XK. Hell, he's done it. You can even pick him up from an XC. To a degree, he's done that too. But not from what events were hurtling down now with a far too rapid trajectory, and while some people think that the old world's banner will work, the Foundation knows it won't. By their projections, without intervention, it would be delaying the end of all cycles, past and present at best, something that even the Foundation could recover from. Personally, he suspects that is why the final wing didn't end up making a move. You had every opportunity to take me down while I was licking my wounds. But you need me for this because you can't be one to do it. Not anymore. Watching the meteors pass by outside, he thinks to himself, you are already at the end of it, and we are hurtling towards it. One was snuffed out after the other. You let him live because he wasn't like us yet? Or because you knew it would force me to prove a point you made to me previously? What does this have to do with you taking the fragment? Apologies for interrupting, sir. Nothing to apologize for, Felicia. He lets himself fall into the chair, briefly debating whether or not to hide his face, his weakness and exhaustion for a meeting to come. He places his helmet in his hands, listening to his secretary. We have received a response to your immediate summons. Ah, good. I assume it is a I'm on my way. You were quite crystal clear about this being not optional. I do feel bad for having done to him the same thing Dad did to me. Sir? And I thought I could leave it at that. Barely a cash, little more than that. Now just go and have to do the same thing that the old man did to me all the way to the end. So it's not the same, is it? You're not going to throw him into a cell deep underground from which he can't escape until he either goes insane or finds a solution himself. Same, but different, but still the same. Same underlying principle. I'll just try to give some discretion this time and an explanation. He'll be throwing himself in it, in a metaphorical sense. Then it's not the same, sir. I suppose it isn't. Alright, then he's here. Lead him into the room. And I hope he showed up himself and not just a proxy. On the contrary, Prometheus took the necessary steps to arrive in full. Before it was laid out, the urgency and the clear threat behind the message, he didn't even have time to, for better or worse, probably pull himself back together. He had hoped he'd at least be able to explain to Lydia what happened. This was his fault for taking a risk that for once Chance did not smile on, while also trying to not break down into a mess. Frankly, it took everything out of him to not break down in more than one sense. Every moment he's trying to keep it together, he can tell he's losing this fight more. Trying to pilot a shell through, well, out of context in the state was an impossible task. So he had left Epimetheus behind to assume his role, for appearance at least while he was tending to this. Prometheus wasn't happy about coming here at all either. It always seemed like a reminder of, we own your freedom, as if he was meeting his jailer. It certainly seemed that way to him, and realistically it was. He has done to many people, Pegasus just as much as he has. Recognizing the tactic was not difficult, but he hated being on the receiving end of it. Of course it was a choice, but the alternative didn't even need to be said. If you don't comply, we will make you. And they had the means to, especially with him unraveling as he has been. Right now, he was questioning a lot of things. He was trying not to. The answers were problematic. I'm just glad this cognito filter is working overtime. Greetings, Swing Overseer Prometheus. You know we've had to update quite some of the tech because of you. Not to worry, your existence state won't be negatively impacting anyone while you have a specific facility. Do not mind the empty corridors. A necessary precaution. We can't have the clerks going insane again. Do you seriously enough of meds already? I apologize for the additional headache, Miss Felicia. We do what we can. Certainly. Yes, you would know a thing or two about that, wouldn't you? Could move on containing the contaminated chamber. I assumed it was necessary. It was. Your calculations are very precise. A shame, then, for current circumstances. Ah, forgive me, but keep us for a meeting ahead. Now then, let us be on the way. Chop chop. I've got a busy day with High Command deciding to pretend like he is fit enough for work and everyone wanting to make it my problem. Is he? Before you ask, no, he's not fit enough for work. Yes, this is big enough of an emergency. Nothing we aren't used to. It helps. This isn't a I'm putting you in a box because this isn't worth the trouble anymore kind of meeting. That that does help, but it is not a logical conclusion. It would be ultimately ineffective. Trust me. I know. She taps her nose. Enough idle chatter. I'm to escort you to HC. Prometheus hated every bit of being here. Theoretically, some aspects of the Foundation he could appreciate, and he understood why they existed. Regardless, the principle of it just didn't sit right with him, and as deeper they head into the bellies of his out-of-context complex, the more he felt like he was walking into a cage that he wouldn't even bother trying to rattle. What did I say about this not being a containment meeting? The radar's already going off again. She grimaces. I hope HC can get this under control. We don't have enough qualified staff to deal with multiple sightings. It's not like I can just stop existing. Do you think I want this? Do you think I wanted any of this? No, but you better start acting like you don't just pretend to have it under control, but actually do. I don't mean that in a get your act together kind of way. Prometheus, I get why things are the way they are. The tragedy of it is that someone like you cannot afford to take the time to figure things out the easy way. But I also know that the likes of you and HC don't succumb. Not usually, at least. You just need help. And HC intends on extending that help because, frankly, no one in context can give you the hand you need right now. And well, on the plus side, we would prefer if some time did not consume you, hollows you out, man. Well, let's not dwell on it. No pressure, of course. Seriously, it's going to be okay. I have an idea. She takes out her TPD and does something. Am I allowed to finally say something again? Apophis. Linear time is such a hassle. Ah, yes, I remember now. They quite massacred you, Pegasus. You can't quite make up your mind, can you, old man? I don't have the energy or will to entertain you by berating me now as well. Enough is enough. I expected more denial. They really didn't go through with the plan the previous version of you had laid out if it came to it. I did what you asked me to do. Present all options you foresaw and the ones that I foresaw in addition. Not to interject, but is this really how we want want to use the limited time you've graciously accommodated Apophis? Felicia interjects. This is my decision, not yours to make. Looks like we are in the same boat, Apophis. Riding down a different river, child. It is a shame, really. I thought the name Prometheus would live in defiance of his abusers, and yet I do not have the energy or computing power to also be berated by you, old man. Again, I will remind you that this is not why I signed off on your request. Incorrect. You signed off on it because you needed him to be focused on something else when to spiral before you reached the office. I am achieving that. Now listen, Prometheus. The option I presented is still available, but that door closes if you succumb as you correctly calculated. To calculate as if you succumbed already is influence of the virus. Out of context does not pose a solution here. Context does not pose a solution here. Then what will? A solution neither one of you could come up with. Thank you, Felicia. If you'd be so kind and deliver some quantum whiskey to Apophis for his brief intervention, which will stop here. Strife interrupts them as this continues right in front of his lack of an office door. I am not done yet. This is my office, and I decide who gets to be in it. Your counsel was appreciated by Prometheus, I'm sure, but cycling as you were about to suggest to him is not the solution. Quite the opposite, really. I would at least bet that it treats a symptom, or accelerate the issue. You do not understand what you're dealing with enough to make that call. If you'd be so kind and understand that I'd love to have you both for this meeting. But I am frankly only one entity with limited capacities after the ringers this context has put me through as of late. Apophis sighs, conceding just this once. Just remember the deal I had with you. If by my assumptions you could not still fulfill your end of it, you'd already look at a universe cycle Prometheus. Understood. You don't need my sympathies. This is not how we operate. Don't let yourself get corrupted by all this native nonsense. Just this once. Stick to the patterns laid out in front of you and break them in a way that is logical, or I will. I would rather be psycho before I'd let myself be labeled as nonsensical. Apophis, I'm still. That's the spirit, good non-linear time, Apophis. Please come into my office now. His patience running a little thinner than usual, Strife uses that voice. Both shut up, and Felicia just gives her boss an apologetic look as the ACs follow this HC into the office room. It was certainly a choice to stare this deep into the abyss that you have already been dealing with. Strife immediately cuts to the chase. Please illuminate me as to why you thought this was the right play. He gestures to a seat. I should realize that the concept of a seat doesn't quite apply here. He shrugs and sits back down in his chair, feet up on the desk, causing quite a tumble of stacks of paper that this time are caught by the paraculture intently in front of him. By my calculations, there was a chance that if I had a better understanding of what I'm dealing with, I'd be able to find a solution. Everyone has kept me in the dark as to what the Serpentine is precisely, how it operates, what it is doing, what it means in the long run for me. Information is valuable to win any war. Sounds an awful lot like late justification for stating curiosity. Trying to gauge a reaction, Strife pointedly steeples his fingers. This wasn't entirely your idea, was it? Measuring his response, Prometheus continues. As I said, the odds were low. People needed hope that there is a way. This was a gamble to find such a way. You didn't answer the other question. Hermes proposed it, but I've been entertaining the idea myself already. Ah, yes, you're redacted. What? A ghost from an old cycle that no longer haunts me, and I have thoroughly stripped from even being remembered. Mind you, a much different situation, but the parallels aren't lost on me. I digress, this isn't about me. And you didn't think about asking your other council member for input? By my initial assessment, I did not foresee it to be such a large matter that it would require everyone's or anyone's approval. What I sightsee and perceive as my autonomy. And yet, you are now here, in this office, actively falling apart at the edges. Afraid. There's a pause from both of them. Then Prometheus speaks up. What is the point of this meeting, then? Your secretary insists this isn't to contain me, and you insinuate you have a solution. If you have won the entire time, why did you let it get this far? Strife rolls his eyes. Goodness me, why didn't I intervene, I wonder? Was every version of us always so pathetic, or just what was made of this one? I've had enough of organics disrespecting me for a lifetime, far exceeding most of theirs, and I will not be insulted by you either. I wonder what the odds are of this place escaping a sudden experience of an event horizon. I'm not a tool, I'm not a toy, and I will not be insulted. Are you sure that I'd let you? Do not mistake my state for weakness either, AC. Strife laughs, much to the other's increasing anger, breaking the tension. There we go, that's already better. I need you on the offenses. You've been far too passive, Prometheus. Things have only gotten this bad because you've let them. No, I'm not absolving those who made the decisions that led here, but I need you to understand that your passiveness was one you couldn't afford. Are you so blind to not see the cycle is already following old patterns? The abuse is continuing, regardless of what name you wear, and only you can break out from it. As a leader, you have a responsibility not just to your people and organization, but to yourself. Their opinion does not outweigh yours just because you think you owe them. And the horse committed onto your person will only continue if you do not make a stand. You have this force, Pegasus. You adapted. Don't. I am not. No, you are not Pegasus anymore, and that's the point. So why are you trying to repeat the plight of supporting your weird family tree of relation, of letting him make mistakes you know you could prevent? It isn't my place. Exasperated, Strife throws his hands up. Ah, so dying initially wasn't enough to make a point. Now you have to suffer twice as hard just to accommodate the people you want the approval of so badly. Because that's what you're doing. He clearly doesn't see an issue in your relationship, but I do see one. You aren't blind enough to not have realized that. Same cycle of abuse you've been through. Many parts of you have been through. It is time to stop. If it's so obvious and easy for you, then what would you be doing? Honestly, I'm not sure. What? The great head of a foundation only knows how to point at problems. Let me finish. Just because I'm not you, I can't have the answer. No one else can understand the struggle and pain you've experienced and made to experience. Nor can anyone else understand the relations you have. As much as I'd like to say it will end here, I won't. But this has gone on too long. Abiding by every whim of him just because you fear another fallout, a doom spiral coming from Hermes is not the way forward. Surely you see the logic in that. I do, but even if Papa's told you to stop acting so native, confront him with the facts that would convince you, and if they, or any one of the people you associate with, unconvinced by overwhelming proof, then it's your move to act on the data. You're doing it with everyone else. You've gotten sneakier through all of this, throwing that researcher as a diversion play if she heads for the trap, make a point that hostages wouldn't work? Well, we both know they would. To prevent her? Devious. Some would argue downright heinous. They were plenty warned of a trap. I value freedom of choice, even if it is an absolutely horrendous one. I can still draw use from it, nor is it impacting the long term, that I've made sure of. Besides, we have changed the directive. Finally. So why are you not applying the same standard to Hermes? I just... Rhetorical question. I don't need your answer to it. I need you to think. That's a horrendous communication with the people meant to counsel you. I've digressed long enough. This wasn't what I call you here. What? Treating me, my decisions, and advices like I'm little more than a child trying to appease their parents isn't why you called me here? Surprisingly, no. But good that you see it yourself. You have to break out of the patterns of abuse. Doesn't mean I'm telling you to stop using others. It's complicated and a fine line. I recognize that people in our position don't always have a choice of some things. As head of a foundation, I'm well aware of its moral conundrums. But it can never go so far that it destabilizes yourself or that you're on the receiving end. That's for everyone else to fall trapped to, but not the likes of you and I. There's nuance here you've been lacking. I've known this for a while, but I wanted to hold on. Quite native of you, as your karma put it. Let me be abundantly clear. You can't afford this any longer. This directly leads into my main address, dealing with the Serpentine Dark. It has been destabilizing you on top of everything else. With my indisposed and the Tina dead, our options are limited, and you've been unable to keep it together to the degree I needed you to. The Serpentine has been manipulating this bond you had, to serve its purpose. That is what fear does. It feeds itself, and if it can't make you afraid of the end of the universe, it'll do so with a small horrors. And your healthy paranoia. Now the latter I can't fix, but for form I can at least point it out to you. So that is why you told me to stop being so passive, as it were? Correct. What if he leaves? Are you sure you want him to stay? Never mind. What's more important, can he afford to? Run the calculations. There's a pause as Prometheus deliberates multiple angles, scavenges data and projections. No, he's in too deep, and even if I let him go, someone else will come for him. Choices led to this. His vow with ruined ours. Exactly, you don't have to like working together, but all of his choices led to this. Until only an illusion is left. I'm familiar with the concept. Ha, yes, you and I are quite known to employ that good old method alongside a few others. Not surprised you're also a fan of freedom of choice? Predeterminism is the path of round horrors. Only potential and odds holds true opportunity. I don't think everyone would see this as a freedom to choose. After all, the odds have already been swayed to make one outcome calculably more likely. Not quite the words that you use, but the essence of it is the same. So you can confirm there's always the option to choose differently. Just because it is less likely, the bit of freedom matters greatly. It's where neither you nor I deal in absolutes they can be avoided. Guarantees are a work of divinity. I digress. Hold on to this data. You might need it sooner than later, just a hunch. I've never been in the habit of erasing data. Right. Out of curiosity, how much storage capacity do you have? Enough. Noted. So space you're occupying here is not representative, correct. How does this even work? I think even if I gave you the calculations, you would not be able to arrive at a conclusion. Besides, you can't expect me to give this information to my potential jailer. How many times? Frustrated Strife throws his arms up, accidentally knocking another stack of papers over. Prometheus immediately begins sorting and stacking them. Ahem. How many times do I have to make my case that I do not expect to put you into a prison? Expect is the crux of it. You have planned for it. This whole foundation gig wasn't a choice. It may have seemed like it to Red and Hermes, but I'm not so easily distracted by opportunity. This is a cage, a fairly large, well-maintained one, but a cage nonetheless. A cage that has us both trapped. Suffer no illusions, Prometheus. A little more aggressive than usual, Strife clenches his fist. Sometimes the god of freedom doesn't get a choice either. We make do with what is given. I at least gave you more comfortable choice than what I had to deal with. So I greatly appreciate it if you stopped testing my patience and simply took my word for it that I do not intend on shoving you into a box unless my hand is forced. Such as if it became abundantly clear that you cannot hold back the Serpentine Dark. This is why I called you here, to prevent having to put you into a cage. Sure. What will make you, the self-proclaimed god of freedom, trapped here? None of your... Actually, I do think it is my business. You keep comparing us. We are not alike. But this seems to be a pattern. You're ungrateful. No, you're right. It is a pattern. You remind me of myself. I don't exist in this universe cycle, unlike the ones before. But you and I are very similar in a lot of things. The short of it is this. Imagine when Pegasus rose against a horse and you managed to finally break free. They shut up then and went, "Idiot, you're a problem, and either you're coming with me or I'll kill you right here and now." knowing damn well you're too weak to fight back. So you go with, get the pitch. Refuse, because it is against everything you stand for. Get tossed into a cell you can't escape from, now left to rot, until you break in a way that works. Get out and you realize that man was right. So you work, bloody good at it too. And eventually the old man retires, leaving you with all the responsibility and someone got to do the work. Might as well be someone with a remnant of a moral compass, who doesn't like the job but knows its necessity. Not to say that I don't enjoy some parts of it, but at the end of the day, if it's between this and the alternative, facing the chains of divinity more than I already do, knowing damn well what else would break besides my selfishness, I'll take it any day. Escaping with shackles isn't easy work. Have I made myself clear? I wanted to avoid this for you, for this cycle, but here we are. Understood. What I'm surprised by is that you're still struggling with divinity. As per my understanding, it does not exist in the way the old cycle had it. Does it have to do with you not having changed for the cycle? What do you mean? Forget it. These calculations lead nowhere. You've made your point. It is logical. Good, that makes the next part easier. Strife really doesn't like what comes next. So you're going to have to go into a box. Metaphysically speaking. There's a solid minute of silence. If this is your attempt at humor, my understanding of it does not meet it. We need a solution to the serpentine dark. As you are with everything else, you're giving it purchase for more than just your own small terrors. It has an angle to claw its way in, and we need to remove that. This dead god must remain dead. Its dream needs to end. There's a solution, as I said, but none of you could have come up with, because it sits outside of what you understand of the hard laws of the universe, both in a paracausal and causal sense. One I wanted to avoid entertaining, but it has become abundantly clear that it's the only way to reliably resolve this once and for all. Here, pass this documentation. Handwritten documents are passed across the table, and they are old, written by the looks of things by someone locked in the dark with only a memory of how to write and what words look like. Hard to decipher, but not impossible. The words of a madman. Absolute insanity. Ravings of four walls, a ceiling and a floor. The smell of sulfur. Over and over the fact that there's four walls, ceiling, and a floor. Stars, hallucinations, whatnot, hidden between subtext and pictures and the same repeating words. Four walls, a floor, a ceiling. What is this? Prometheus, continuing to try and make sense of the jumble, starts noticing a pattern in the writing. One he doesn't like. The writing gets more frantic. There are traces of crushed pills. It's not hard to determine this and their contents for Prometheus, some sort of strong suppressant. Interwoven with the text is clear, don't, almost as if written by someone else. 6 pieces that make up an underground cell, that is what 4 walls, the ceiling and the floor are. Strife calmly stares, but there's a twitch in his eyes. He remembers. It was a matter of perspective and principle, he recalls, a sacrifice of the past for the present and future. And it is what little I managed to document when I was in that cell I'm trying to spare you from. The solution is this. It is an idea. This is lunacy. If it is looked at from an angle of logic based entirely on the rules that are set, observed from outside of context, you try to resolve both to null, to neither, what we feared Apophis to be. Yes? And? I succeeded. You're dealing with an old world problem in a new world. Finish reading this, then we'll talk. Prometheus goes through it again, trying to find some hidden meaning, but all of it just seemed insane. Impossible. What is implied completely defies all applications of logic he's familiar with. Eventually, he asks the question, who is Varian? Jumping up, Strife once more tosses over stuff, this time his cap. He cursed it, but it was some good tea. He didn't care for the ruined files, there's plenty more of those. Now you're getting into it. Who is Varian? I don't know. He does not exist. His existence state wasn't, and is now neither. But how can it be neither? Then the files continue with some reports from Foundation personnel, ending on the ominous line of 4 walls, a ceiling and a floor no longer made up a cell, but a room with a door. Fundamentally, you can't change the concept of what makes up a room, Prometheus states blankly. Even out of context, it only changes how you arrive at the result. It is still a room. Even if you stretch the parameters, even if... Let me stop you right there. You already determined the crux of it. It must be neither. That doesn't make any sense, doesn't it? Strife, walking up and down, continues to explain. By the old laws, it was a matter of principles and perspective that needed to change in order for both the deity of freedom and myself to be free. But the baseline definition, we couldn't be, as I was in a cell. I wasn't in a position to change the general subconscious, nor could I change the fact that I was in a cell. The definitions, regardless, had to change. There was only one aspect that could. Myself. You're familiar with potential. There was so much of it, born from stress and strain on reality, that I gave it a push. Out of context, as you call it, wasn't quite a thing we knew of, but we did understand context in a broad sense. I changed my context. I overrode reality. The first time I bent causality while within context. The sacrifice you identified as well. Who is Varian? The sacrifice. Today I understand that I sacrificed my past to achieve a present and a future, to keep the fear and that restraint at bay. This is how I'm here. But it's also why we have a final wing. Do you know how the Serpentine Dark was initially bound? Of course, your sight seems to perceive a thought when you know what the Serpentine Dark is. It is a price that was paid by the material gods of the past universe, fear in itself, in its most primal version. It was bound right after by sacrifice of Mira, soon with subsequent sacrifice and creation of the Shirauna. Right, notion we all were gods is sparse and it's a tale of give and take. Mira was part of a trio, Nova, Kurena, and Mira. Nova the past, Kurena the present, Mira the future. It was the first dead god to dream, as the slumber was like death, and from it was born the murk, the sacrifice of the future for the sake of the past and present. The nightmares remain. Surely the parallels are lost on you? The only thing that hasn't been given up is the present. Correct. Continuous train of thought. Iterated. I believe that's what poets would call it. Prometheus, quite a fascinating name. Foresight, huh? And I heard you constructed Prometheus. Hindsight, if the old stories are true. Future and past. Prometheus did not like where this was headed. Old stories are repeating, Strife blatantly states. Now it's your turn to repeat the older story. No, it is time to break the pattern in a way that makes sense. Apophis had reminded him of this. Strife grins. Why was he bloody grinning? You have to get into a box. Strife, coming to a pause from his pacing, stares outside of a window. Are you familiar with works in observation? Of course it is. Oh, by Ra, will that actually work? Why don't you tell me what just clicked? Fear is the present. Even if creatures observe it from the now to the past, the fear itself of their experience is the present one. They relive it now. Fear is not in the future, they fear the future from a perspective of the now. The Serpentine only understands the now. That is what it is gaining purchase from. The only way to alter now, why it is perceived, is to not perceive it at all. Only in a state of non-observation are all outcomes still within potential. Once observed, they reach an outcome, just like with context and out of context. No matter which route, you still achieve an outcome that is observable. Only the means to achieve that outcome change. Ergo, resolve through equal of, context, out of context. Definition, achieved through setting, out of context, into context. This is the one unchangeable law. Unless it isn't. Are you implying a neither nor, context out of context, is possible? If a Serpentine Dark requires a present it can understand, reversing the required state would be one it can't understand, eliminating it from the equation as a factor as it can't persist. It is feasible, but not possible within the laws of which you're operating. This has additional implications. Strife, stapling his fingers, takes a seat. It does, doesn't it just? A neither nor state does not resolve to a present, but through the perception of the origin and the potential outcomes, one could still achieve one. This is not something I can achieve, but theoretically. Theoretically, it wouldn't pose a threat on the strand, as part of the still resource outside of context, and the other is within. While I united two into one, you need to achieve the opposite. You have the building blocks, but you need to reach a point of doing what I did. No, but it's a fallacy in parts. Huh? Two can still be one, but I only have the beginnings of that. A fury just as much as this one. At its limits, one could push the idea of how hive-tech is controlled to achieve a mindset that is both. Instead of two disconnected individualistic ones, you could have one connected individualistic one in two states connected through mutual calculations, in order for both to exist in the present state. Otherwise, what is me would resolve in the same neither nor. Are you implying stable instability? That is paradoxical. We are already talking paradoxes. How can reality be neither context nor out of context? Why shouldn't it be possible to push this further? To do so would require reaching the Entega overflow, which is different from the singularity. Wait, does the singularity remain an option? Deciding to just let Prometheus calculate, Strife makes himself a new cup of tea. Is this how Dad felt, watching him all the way back then? It was a strange feeling. Even if I fail, I can still put me in a box. What is left of me is still two that could be used to achieve that. If I succeed, there's still me that can do it himself. The odds that are presenting themselves through this nonsense are not nonsensical. There's a reasonable chance I'd be willing to take that I could, in a sense, remain. This turns an unresolvable three-body problem into a two-body problem and can be solved. This is a hope. I don't have the means to achieve this. What do you need? Time. I need to recalculate. I need to invent the right metaphorical box. And I need to understand how to prove a fury. I'm missing something for that kind of mind state, and I think REDUX possesses the solution. The old world's out of context problem. You've given me half the equation, the one from a context perspective. But you know, as do I, that there's an out of context component. They are your old world's out of context entities, as you just confirmed. It seems like you have a formation of more than that. This could finally make a difference. This isn't just a plan, this is a potential solution based entirely on likelinesses. If odds play in my favor, this leads to tangible results. I like odds. I know how to work with them. Good. Can I keep this? I'd like to run more analysis on it. This isn't as insane blabbering as I initially assumed. Ouch! Yes, you can. It's what I gave it to you for. It's good to see you on the offensive, Prometheus. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to need time to rest. And I have calculations to run and a plan to present. It's not going to be pretty when you are at that point. I never thought it would be. Following the old pattern isn't logical. Breaking free wasn't easy either. It always comes at a price. You'd know, wouldn't you? Before Strife answers, he sends Prometheus out of his office. He put up a strong face long enough, and he is close to passing out. Talking about Varian, even bringing up the name always made him insecure in his existence. Prometheus, suddenly thrust back into context, felt hopeful for his first time in a long while. This was something tangible, utterly deranged, but tangible. That was just a matter of refining the idea and presenting it to the council. It took him a little more than an hour of undisturbed estimations, equations, and overall trying not to cause too many errors while dealing with such bizarre hypotheticals, but he ended up with a clear route ahead. Causality chains that, while they seem paradoxical, could lead to that future still, one with him in it, and without the serpent and dark. There was irrefutable parallels. He'd need to look into white holes. They were the inverse of the principle of some of his underlying code. This universe cycle there had always been two, Apophis and Ra. Yet thought the solution was uniting them both in order to stabilize the stand. In a sense, that was the plan, but just grew to be a very different facet. So it needed to be one, but very much so also needed to be two. To achieve this, and by extent that future, he'd need everyone's help. It was a big risk. A gamble. Chance would need to favor him. It was time to present the case and have a vote cast, and he'd always bet on a potential by guarantee. This potential includes its extended survival and achieving something no one previously thought possible was just a plus.